Loosen the screw on the bottom of the stand and remove the base. Carefully pry up 4 rubber screw covers. Remove 4 screws. Lift the stand from the back of the system. Place the stand onto the back of the system. Install 4 screws. Install 4 rubber screw covers. Insert the base into the end of the stand arm and tighten the screw on the bottom of the stand. Remove 4 screws from the shielding bracket cover. Lift the cover from the system. Remove 3 silver heatsink screws in numerical order. Remove 2 black heatsink screws in numerical order. Lift the heatsink from the system. Place the heatsink into the system using the screw holes and posts for alignment. Install 3 silver heatsink screws in numerical order. Install 2 black heatsink screws in numerical order. Insert the tabs on the shielding bracket cover into the bracket and lower the cover into place. Install 4 screws into the cover. Remove 4 screws from the back cover. Lift the edge of the cover with the I/O ports, then carefully pull up the clips around the edges of the cover to remove it. Align the back cover with the system and press down around the edges to lock the clips into place. Install 4 screws into the cover. Disconnect the power button cable from the board. Remove 2 screws from the power lens and lift it from the system. Remove 1 screw from the power button board. Disconnect the LED FPC cable from the board and lift the board from the system. Connect the LED FPC cable to the power button board. Place the board onto the posts and install one screw. Place the power lens onto the board and install two screws. Connect the power button cable to the board. Remove 11 screws from the shielding bracket. Lift the bracket from the system. Lower the shielding bracket into position using the posts and screw holes for alignment. Install 11 screws into the bracket. Disconnect the camera cable from the system board. Peel up the black tape to release the cable from the chassis. Remove two screws from the camera cable. Lift the cable from the socket. Insert the camera cable into the socket on the edge of the system. Install two screws. Secure the cable to the chassis using the black tape. Connect the camera cable to the system board. Disconnect the power button cable from the system board. Disconnect the cable from the power button board. Peel up the black tape to release the cable and remove it. Connect the cable to the power button board. Secure the cable to the chassis using the black tape. Connect the power button cable to the system board. Disconnect the system board panel cable from the system board. Peel up the black tape to release the cable. Squeeze the cable connector to disconnect it and remove the cable. Connect the system board panel cable to the panel connector. Secure the cable to the chassis using the black tape. Connect the system board panel cable to the system board. Disconnect the P-sensor cable from the system board. Disconnect the 3 P-sensor cable connectors on the bottom edge of the system. Peel up the black tape to release the cable and remove it. Connect the 3 P-sensor cable connectors on the bottom edge of the system. Connect the cable to the system board. Secure the cable to the chassis using the black tape. Disconnect the system board touch cable from the system board. Peel up the black tape to release the cable. Disconnect the cable from the touch connector. Connect the system board touch cable to the touch connector. Secure the cable to the chassis using the black tape. Connect the system board touch cable to the system board. Disconnect the P-sensor cable from the system board. Disconnect the power button cable from the system board. Disconnect the LVDS cable from the system board. Disconnect the system board panel cable from the system board. Disconnect the Wi-Fi antenna cables. Disconnect the camera cable from the system board. Disconnect the system board touch cable from the system board. Disconnect the audio cable from the system board. Remove 4 screws from the system board. Carefully lift the system board from the chassis. Place the system board onto the posts on the chassis. Install 4 screws into the system board. Connect the audio cable to the system board. Connect the system board touch cable to the system board. Connect the camera cable to the system board. Connect the black antenna cable to the CH0 terminal on the Wi-Fi card. Connect the gray antenna cable to the CH1 terminal on the Wi-Fi card. Connect the system board panel cable to the system board. Connect the LVDS cable to the system board. Connect the power button cable to the system board. Connect the P sensor cable to the system board. Peel up the audio cable tape from the chassis. Peel up the Wi-Fi antenna metallic tape on both sides of the system. Remove 4 screws from the center of the bracket. Remove 12 screws from the side edges and the top edge of the bracket. Remove 16 screws from the bottom edge of the bracket. Lift the bracket from the system. Align the back bracket with the system, making sure to thread the LVDS cable through the hole in the bracket. Install 16 screws into the bottom edge of the bracket. Install 12 screws into the side edges and top edge of the bracket. Install 4 screws into the center of the bracket. Press down the metallic tape on both sides of the system. Secure the audio cable to the chassis using its tape. Press the tabs on both sides of the LVDS cable to release it, then pull it from the slot. Insert the LVDS cable into the slot until it is completely connected. Lift the bezel from the panel. Lower the bezel into place on the panel, making sure not to trap any cables under it. Pry the antenna with the black cable from the bezel using a non-metallic pry tool. Pry the antenna with the gray cable from the bezel using a non-metallic pry tool. Place the antenna with the black cable onto the bezel and press it down. Place the antenna with the gray cable onto the bezel and press it down.